Want to build replay value into your decks? Then stick around because live from Bulbasaur, South Africa, we'll bring a Dimir Spellslinger Token deck. The goal of Modal Commander is simple: to brew a deck so alive that we keep it around. One of these characteristics includes upgradability, allowing us to be excited about the large amount of products coming to the game. And they're always inherently janky due to the caveat of designing not around one, but two or more commanders. Mainly, the goal is to help revive the jank and surprises that used to make up the format. So take this challenge with me. Let's take a step back and take a look at the 98 cards that make up this deck. But first, subscribe. If I don't ask, you won't do it. So help me out. Besides at least the 8 to 10 pieces of ramp and draw, 5 pieces of protection and removal, every good deck should do 2 things well. Just 2. For today, it's casting low-cost instances and keeping our graveyard spell count high. You might be confused, but bear with me, because once you stop evaluating cards in isolation, or comparison with one other card, deck building gets a lot easier. So let's break down what goes into my modal Dimir Spellslinger deck. It's cheap bulk interaction, and permanents that provide incremental value offer low-cost interaction. With a choice of menacing tokens or goading fairies in the command zone, this deck has a different play pattern each time you play it. We'll break down our deck into enablers, payoffs, and commanders. But first, Lord of the Nazgûl. For 3 blue and a black, we're going to be making 3 3s on every instant spell cast on a 4/3 body. This commander does nothing unusual, just play at instant speed, one of the 2 things you want to be doing, but instead of merely controlling the board, every interaction spell advances a threatening force of 3 3s with menace. And once the Wraith army is close to 9, our opponents are forced to answer our value engine while we have mana open and interact. With a win con stapled onto it, this commander is one to have on the field with mana open. Then moving on to our second commander, Alela. 2 blue and a black, you get a 2/4 flyer that says for each first spell cast you cast on an opponent's turn, put a 1/1 Faerie rogue creature token with flying on the battlefield. And when one or more fairies deal combat damage to an opponent, go target creature that opponent controls. It's a huge psychological shift on the table, and a new way to play the deck. You want to be swinging with your evasive flyers, goading creatures, and taking advantage of the forced combats with their instant speed interaction. Each of these decks plays similar but different, and that's what makes a Modal Commander deck beautiful, because with less cards at a better price point, we have 2 decks. And most Dimir control decks struggle with converting interaction into tempo. Both Alela and Nazgûl fix the problem. Each of our turns will mainly probably be a land pass or land combat pass, and then playing interaction on other people's turns. Instant speed interaction like you're already dead. This is what we want to play. Cantrips. Anything cheap that replaces itself in hand is perfect and preferred. Cheap interaction, something that offers card replacement, preferably card advantage, spell count advancement. In Spellslinger's decks, efficiency matters more than power. We're going to be trying to maximize the number of meaningful games actions on each player's turn. A 1 mana spell that replaces itself while triggering all your other payoff pieces is exactly the kind of glue this deck needs. And the effect itself plays great with our 2 blocking Wraiths and force goading from Alela. Check and check. Something I used to catch my college roommate doing all the time, Bounce Off. It's great for allowing our attackers through and reduce pressures from opponents. A couple of these can slot into the deck. Snap, for example, Vapor Sting. These buy time without fully committing resources or a lot of mana. The flexibility matters, and this is Modal Commander, so you know this also doubles as a protection piece, but not preferably. And to make your opponents feel better, you create them with flavor text. Control lost is adventure gained. Spot on. And one thing you want to be doing when you're playing blue is not be condescending. Condescend, a classic counterspell. Perfect for our land pass turns where we might have extra mana, we can sink some mana into this, guaranteeing a counter. It also allows cheap filtering, and it goes far in the deck whenever we're casting spells constantly. A couple slots like this can stop you from asking, do I pass with mana open? How do I fix my hand? And this also puts a token onto the battlefield. Cards that improve draw quality in general quietly raise the power of most decks, this included. And a great piece of card filtering is Frantic Search. Low cost can mean free, so we want our Frantic Searches, our Snaps, or whatever other $50 blue card is out there. Frantic Search specifically lets you filter cards, drop a token body, and increase your graveyard spell count. It's a high mark of a high-end Spellslinger design, spells that continue the chain instead of ending it. And you can see on screen it's been printed a gazillion times. It can often be found in your local LGS bulk, so pay them a visit. Sift through the cheap bulk for spells under 3, and you got a bones of this deck. Now we move off into payoff territory. The cards that turn spellcasting into gas. Not gas like you just ate a can of beans, but cards like Archmage of Runes. Cast a spell, draw a card. Black Mage's Rod. Cast a spell, ping the table for 1. And even Talran. Run Talran. Kill creatures, make a flyer, and swing out using one of the 3 win cons in the deck. I like to pay off my spells with the sometimes on-theme engine, Faerie Tauntings. You don't need to combo with it, you don't need to build around it heavily. It's continuing doing what our deck is already doing. That's important in Casual Commander. This enchantment allows you to cast spells, pinging an opponent for 1, applying incremental damage, and forcing life totals downward while you maintain interaction. So only opponents can't comfortably spend turns developing value engines because the table clock is accelerating, and you're untapped. This Dimir deck wins the game in a lot of different ways. Not so much explosively or fast, but inevitably, through accumulation. An important part of accumulating value is keeping cards in hand. Waybreak Hippocamp. For 2 and a blue, you get a 2/2 enchantment creature that draws you a card for their first spell cast on an opponent's turn. Archmage of Emeritus, of Runes, of my butt, all find a home in this deck. You hold interaction, wait for opponents to commit first, they convert those instant speed turns into velocity by drawing a card. There's a massive strategic advantage when you maintain flexibility while still progressing your own plan. Similarly, we want instant speed draw spells, so we make those quick draws and condescends feel a little better. Burning through our deck and casting spells is perfect for Fandaniel. This card sits firmly in the pit of all your opponent's stomachs. It rewards graveyard spell count while also threatening scaling value over time. One instant suddenly creates compounding end step damage, tokens, and card filtering. That's when Dimir starts to feel oppressive, because every individual spell becomes overloaded with value. If you have this guy successfully on the board, keep a counterspell in hand, because the first time it procs, your opponents will start to think about how do I remove this. Another important part of the deck is cards like Relic Amulet. For 2 mana, you get to put a charge counter on this thing for every instant, sorcery, or wizard spell you cast. And for 2 mana, you can tap and remove all charge counters from Relic Amulet, dealing that much damage to target creature. It converts spell velocity directly into creature removal. Doing so allows us to control the board without having to cast a spell from hand. A good way to use maybe unspent mana and remove an important piece on an opponent's board, opening up a spot for your Wraiths with Menace or one of your flyers to get through. Another fun game piece that I like to run is Rug of Smothering. A very fun creature in this stormy Strixhaven environment, functioning as table pressure. For 3 mana, you get an artifact creature construct, 1/3 with flying, that reads, whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn. And these cards like this matter for our land pass decks, allowing us to feel more comfortable about taking advantage of our 1 spell on each opponent's turn game plan, and is ultimately a really often piece removed from my opponents. Good card. This final section is about winning, and of course we're going to run Hullbreaker Horror, Soul Ring, and some other mana rock to bounce everyone's thing to hand, or you can even run Isochron Scepter and whatever the untapped thing is. But when you brew, do not slot in more board wipes and you have ways to win the game. What happens when your engine's fully online? You're going to wipe the board? Your pod will thank you for having an answer to how do I win the game. Cards like Candlekeep Inspiration. By the late game, a board of 6 or more Wraiths or Faeries might need a little bit of pump. Decks naturally accumulate huge graveyards in broad board states, and Candlekeep converts all that invisible resource buildup into immediate lethal pressure. And often, to your opponent's surprise, because not a lot of people play this card. And that's a key concept in the mirror. Resources don't always look threatening until they do. So for 4 and a blue, until end of turn a board of 3 3s or 1 1s with evasion into XXs with a number of spells in your graveyard, or an exile to the graveyard hater's dismay. And finally, for some sleeper tech, we have Complete the Circuit. Not just a payoff, an amplifier. The deck already wants to cast instants and sorceries repeatedly. Complete the Circuit takes the base game plan and pushes it to absurd territory. These are cards that create essentially a storm turn. This feels good with a Snap, Exsanguinate, Torment of Hellfire, a Frantic Search, and let you tap all your creature tokens and look for a big control or damaging spell before your upkeep. This goes great with the Lord of the Nazgûl because each spell cast will make a Wraith. Building a modal commander deck isn't about copying a deck list. It's about understanding rules, enablers, payoffs, win cons, and putting them all into a 100-card deck. Start brewing your commander decks as a system instead of a pile of cards. Brewing will become dramatically easier. To end, take time to reach out to the people you regularly play with, or maybe haven't played with in a while. Let them know how much they mean to you and that you look forward to playing with them again, hopefully soon. Subscribe so I do more. Peace.